Have you ever looked around and wondered why the loudest, coldest, most controlling people seem to command respect, while those who are gentle, kind, and just want peace get walked all over? Maybe you felt it too deep in your gut, that unsettling moment when you bite your tongue instead of speaking your truth, that invisible tension in your chest when your opinions are dismissed, or the quiet heartbreak of seeing your kindness mistaken for weakness time and time again. And the worst part, the world doesn't seem to reward your goodness. Instead, it seems to punish it. But what if I told you this isn't a coincidence? What if there's a system, a psychological truth behind why the world treats you this way? Let's explore it. Main body, reality check. Over 500 years ago, the political philosopher Machiavelli wrote something controversial. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. To many, that sounds harsh, even cruel. But beneath that cold surface lies a disturbing truth. The human brain responds to power more than it responds to intention. Not because people are evil, but because the mind is wired to protect itself. Kindness without strength becomes background noise. But strength, even when expressed calmly, commands attention. We're not talking about becoming a tyrant. This isn't about manipulation, arrogance, or cruelty. It's about waking up to the brutal mechanics of how respect is built. Have you ever given everything to someone, your time, your energy, your empathy, only to feel invisible in return? Have you found yourself saying yes when every fiber of your being screamed no, just to avoid disappointing someone? If so, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You're simply caught in a dangerous misunderstanding, the belief that being good is enough. But here's the hard truth. Kindness without boundaries is like bleeding in shark-infested waters. You may hope for peace, but predators smell blood. Emotional pivot, internal conflict. You might be at a crossroads right now, tired of giving too much, tired of being taken for granted. Maybe you're asking yourself, how do I earn respect without becoming someone I don't want to be? How do I show strength without turning cold? How do I protect my peace without becoming a person I no longer recognize? These are the exact questions this video is here to answer, because the solution isn't to stop being kind, it's to stop being defenseless. We're going to dismantle the illusion that kindness alone will earn you the life you deserve. We'll walk through the psychology of fear, respect, and presence. And yes, we'll borrow insight from Machiavelli not to become cold, but to become wise. Because here's the truth, people don't respect kindness itself. They respect what kindness represents when it's paired with strength. Deeper dive. Why being nice doesn't work. You've been told since childhood that being kind, polite, and helpful will make others treat you well. That if you're good, the world will be good to you. But somewhere along the way, the world didn't hold up its end of that promise. And why is that? Because the brain doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards perceived authority. And authority is not about shouting. It's not about threats. It's about posture, boundaries, and clarity. True authority is felt when someone speaks with calm confidence, when they set a limit and don't flinch, when they know when to walk away not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Let me ask you, how do you react to someone who never says no, who smiles even when they're hurting, who tries to please everyone, even when it costs them their dignity? You may admire their heart, but do you respect them? Now flip that image. Picture someone who, with grace and quiet certainty, makes it clear this is my line. You don't cross it. Someone who can say no with zero guilt, who doesn't need to explain themselves to be understood. That present, strong, calm, unapologetic commands respect, without ever raising a voice. This is not aggression. This is self-mastery. And that, my friend, is what the world listens to. The invisible thread, fear and respect. Fear and respect are connected by an invisible thread, but it's not the fear of violence. It's the fear of consequence. When people know you have limits and that you will enforce them, they tread carefully. Not out of fear of you, but out of fear of losing access to you. That's what Machiavelli meant. He wasn't glorifying cruelty. He was pointing out something brutally real. People forget favors, but they never forget who forces them to think twice. This doesn't just apply to kings or leaders. It applies to you and your friendships, your romantic relationships, your workplace. If you're always the one giving, always the one adjusting, always the one sacrificing, while others take, manipulate, or ignore, You'll never be respected. You may be liked. You may be appreciated. But respect, that comes from something else. And until you understand this dynamic, you'll keep exhausting yourself trying to be liked and wondering why no one takes you seriously. The turning point is being good wrong. Now, maybe you're wondering about, is being kind wrong? And should I become cold, distant, unfeeling? No, not at all. But here's the real dilemma. One of the most painful hidden conflicts in modern psychology. When does kindness become weakness? When does your goodness turn into a tool others use against you? This is what we're going to explore in the next part of this video. Because what's coming is not just advice, it's a mirror. And when you look into it, you might not like what you see, but it will set you free. Closing, invitation to self-discovery. Maybe no one ever taught you this. Maybe you grew up hearing that to be kind is to be good, that the world would reward your empathy, that your generosity would be seen and returned. But here's what really happens. Kindness without discernment becomes bait. And yes, there are predators out there. They can smell your kindness from a mile away, not to appreciate it, but to exploit it. You give, they take, you forgive, they repeat, you stay, they push further. And the more you try to hold on to your image of being the good person, the more you lose yourself. Psychology calls this self-abandonment. You abandon your own needs, your own voice, your own protection, just to keep the peace, just to be liked. But here's what they don't tell you. There is no true kindness without strength. Kindness that cannot defend itself is not virtue. It's vulnerability disguised as virtue. That's not goodness. That's a trap, a cycle, a pattern that only you can break. Final words, your power. So ask yourself honestly, are you living from genuine kindness or from the fear of not being liked? Are you setting boundaries or just hoping people will read your mind and be fair? The world won't change until you do. And Machiavelli knew it. The people who are respected are the ones who know when to be gentle and when to draw the line. In the next part of this series, we'll dive deeper into how to know when your kindness is being weaponized against you and what to do about it. So if this resonated with you, don't just scroll away. Hit the subscribe button. Stick around, because the truth will hurt, but it will also set you free. Previously, we asked, how can you defend yourself and command respect without becoming someone you despise? Now we step deeper into that question. He never wanted you to become cruel. That was never the lesson. His purpose was to help you understand, to see clearly into the heart of human nature. And one truth about human nature stands tall, uncomfortable as it may be. We respect those who know how to protect themselves, those who carry an invisible strength, a firmness that tells the world, you can come this far, no further. But that brings us to a critical dilemma. How can you project that strength without turning bitter? How do you inspire respect, even fear, without falling into hatred or becoming the very thing you loathe? That, my friend, is what we're going to unravel now. To do so, we must turn to a man many misunderstand. A man demonized by some, idolized by others, and ignored only by fools. A man whose insights may just be the shield you've been looking for. His name is Niccolo Machiavelli. He wasn't just a philosopher. He wasn't some armchair theorist. He was a relentless observer of human behavior, a man who lived through the chaos of political betrayal, civil war, corrupted courts, and backstabbing allies. His reality was one most of us can only imagine, a world where survival demanded ruthless clarity, and what he saw shook the foundation of conventional morality. Machiavelli realized something uncomfortable but essential. Power does not belong to the righteous. It belongs to the clear-sighted. This raw truth gave birth to his most controversial work, The Prince, a book reviled by some, revered by others, but never forgotten. Those who label him a monster miss the point entirely. He wasn't cruel. He was precise. He stripped away illusions to expose how power truly operates, not how we wish it would. While others romanticized virtue, Machiavelli dissected reality. He understood something painfully relevant to this day. In a world driven by self-interest, naive idealism is a silent invitation to be devoured. Whether you're governing a country, a business, or simply your own personal life, you need to know the game behind the game. The hidden dynamics that dictate who gets stepped on and who walks away untouched. So when he says, it is safer to be feared than loved, don't mistake it for a license to harm. That's not his point. He's not advocating cruelty. He's exposing fragility. Love in human society is often unstable, conditional, fragile. People love you when you serve their interests, when you make them feel good. But that love can evaporate at the first sign of inconvenience, the first time you say no, the first time you choose yourself. Fear, when used with wisdom, not violence, creates structure. It builds a wall, an invisible boundary that quietly says, I am not someone to be tested. Machiavelli saw fear not as a sword to strike others down, but as armor, a form of psychological protection. Because here's another uncomfortable truth he recognized. A man who inspires no fear at all will eventually be betrayed. Because without fear, there is no caution. And without caution, human beings show their worst selves. But he also knew the dangers of excess. He warned of the tipping point. Fear must be measured. A ruler or any person who is only feared and becomes hated plants the seeds of rebellion. Because hatred, unlike fear, simmers in silence. It waits. It plots. It builds beneath the surface like a ticking bomb. That's why Machiavelli urged for balance. True lasting authority isn't built on terror. It's forged through a precise mix of firmness, strategic thinking, and self-control. His advice, be cold but surgical, never cruel. A man consumed by hatred loses clarity. He lashes out. And when a leader rules from hatred instead of strategy, he creates chaos, not power. Instead, Machiavelli spoke of presence, the kind of presence that keeps people alert, cautious, not because you raise your voice, but because you don't need to. You are the quiet edge of the blade, the weight in the room. So pause for a moment. Really think, how does this apply to you? Are you the ruler of your own life, or are you being ruled? Do you set boundaries, or do you wait until people push too far before you react? The answer lies not in how loudly you speak, but in how solidly you stand. And that brings us to the next most delicate art. How do you become feared, but not hated? How do you create such commanding personal authority that people hesitate before they disrespect you? Not because they fear punishment, but because your very presence reminds them of limits. In the next section, we'll step into this subtle yet powerful domain, the true art of authority, because this is the turning point. This is where everything begins to shift. There's a razor-thin line between being feared and being hated. And if you don't know how to walk that line, you risk falling into one of two traps, both equally destructive. Passivity, which invites exploitation, or tyranny, which provokes rebellion. Real power doesn't live in extremes, it lives in balance. And here's the truth, being feared does not mean being aggressive. It doesn't mean yelling, humiliating, or forcing submission through pressure. That's not respect, that's terror, and terror always expires. Sooner or later, it collapses, often violently. Machiavelli knew that. He wrote, "A ruler must avoid being hated at all costs because hatred is the slowest, deadliest poison." People can live with fear, but not with humiliation. Not for long. So here lies the secret. You must be respected enough that people don't even consider crossing you. But you must also be fair enough that they don't wish to destroy you behind your back. And how do you do that? It begins with coherence, with posture, with a kind of internal clarity that speaks before your mouth does. You act in a way that tells others without words that disrespect carries consequences, that your boundaries aren't suggestions, that your presence matters and your absence is felt. And no, this doesn't happen overnight. It begins with small, quiet gestures, saying no without apology, stepping out of toxic conversations without explaining yourself, not repeating yourself to people who've heard you, but keep testing your limits anyway. It's about owning your emotional space, making it known through calm, consistent action that you will not be shaped by anyone else's desires. Psychology confirms this. Those who exercise authority silently without confrontation command more respect over time. This is what's known as latent power. It's the kind of presence that lingers in the room even when you're not speaking. It's the quiet weight of someone who does not tolerate disrespect, not because they threaten, but because everyone already knows. That is the art of being feared without being hated. It's not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. Because those who govern their emotions, their reactions, their space with calm, firm intention radiate an authority that no volume of shouting can match. But What if you try all of this and it still doesn't work? What if you're still being tested, still ignored, still manipulated? That's when we step into even deeper territory, the internal space, where patterns of fear, submission, and self-doubt are born. And that's what we'll explore in the next chapter. You've seen now that true power isn't about domination or shouting, it's about commanding presence. And the moment you stop asking for respect and start embodying it, everything begins to shift. But here's the thing, even with that understanding, there's one place many people get stuck: the mind. Because while the world may respect you only as much as you demand it, your inner world, your thoughts, your conditioning, your emotional scars might be the very thing silently holding you back. In this next part, we're going deeper. We'll explore how your mental and emotional history might be sabotaging your ability to be respected, and more importantly, how to break this pattern and begin crafting a new identity. One that is stronger, more grounded, and unshakable. If what you've heard so far has stirred something inside you, then you'll find immense value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It unpacks the core teachings of Carl Jung and offers real practical tools to help you understand yourself at a deeper level. The link is in the pinned comment. But let's return to the heart of the matter. Now that you intellectually understand the importance of being firm, of setting boundaries, of inspiring a quiet kind of fear that comes from self-respect, here's the question you must ask. Are you emotionally ready to live this truth? Because knowledge alone isn't transformation. If deep down you're still afraid of upsetting others, still anxious about being rejected when you speak your truth, still secretly hoping that being nice will eventually win people over, then the real obstacle isn't out there, it's inside. And that is where true transformation begins. Many people carry invisible wounds from childhood, conditioned to please, to obey, to not disturb the peace. Taught sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, that love is something you earn by being agreeable, that saying no is selfish, that disagreeing makes you difficult, that standing up for yourself could cost you affection. And over time, this creates adults who twist themselves into knots just to be liked, who stay silent just to avoid tension, who tolerate disrespect because they fear that drawing a line will mean losing love. But let's be clear, this is emotional poison. It's a subconscious program that turns you into a servant to other people's comfort. And every time you obey that internal script, it sinks deeper into your bones. Every time you say yes when you meant no, you send the world a clear message. My needs come second. Every time you avoid conflict, you give power to injustice. Every time you forgive someone who isn't even sorry, you validate their abuse. Respect starts inside. There is no external authority without inner stability. You cannot expect others to value your boundaries if you don't believe you deserve boundaries in the first place. No one will take you seriously if you constantly second-guess your worth. And so the construction of your new identity must begin. Slowly, deliberately, with small but powerful choices. Start by paying attention. Notice where you silence yourself out of fear. In which situations do you shrink to make others comfortable? Around whom do you feel the need to pretend to perform to be someone you're not? One by one, these situations must be addressed, not with rage, but with strategy, not with chaos, but with clarity. As you begin to assert yourself, be prepared. Some people will not like it. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of being cold, distant, difficult. But understand that's not about you. It's about them losing control over a version of you that used to serve them. And yes, you will lose people along the way. But here's the liberating truth. Losing those who only liked you when you were small is not a loss. It's freedom. When you start living in alignment with your truth, the world shifts around you. People who once dismissed you now pay attention. Relationships that once drained you either evolve or disappear. You stop chasing approval. And in doing so, you start attracting respect. Because your time, your energy, your presence, they're no longer free for everyone. And what isn't easily accessible is always more valued. But even with all this awareness, there's still one final piece missing. A thread that ties everything together. You understand the philosophy, you grasp the psychology, you've felt the emotional impact. But now comes the real test. How do you maintain this new strength without becoming what you once hated? How do you stay firm without becoming bitter? Commanding without becoming controlling? Powerful without losing your heart? This is the final frontier, and it demands a decision. You either continue down the old path trying to earn your worth by pleasing others, by shrinking, by apologizing for taking up space, or you take a stand. You stop begging for scraps of validation and start living like someone who knows they deserve respect. This doesn't mean becoming cold or detached. It doesn't mean turning into a tyrant, but it does mean learning to raise invisible walls, to draw firm lines, to meet manipulation with silence, to look into the eyes of those who test your limits and say not with words, but with your presence, not anymore. That is real strength, the kind of strength that doesn't need to threaten or shout, but is felt in the way you walk, the way you look, the way you no longer explain yourself to people who refuse to understand. And this strength begins the moment you stop chasing love and start demanding respect. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that affection is fleeting, conditional, vulnerable to change. But respect, when built on integrity, consistency, and personal authority, lasts. It becomes a shield, a quiet armor that needs no words. And that's what you must seek. Not just to be liked, but to be sovereign. Because being good is not enough. Your goodness must be armed, with self-awareness, with boundaries, with unwavering standards. That's the shift. You don't become hard. You become whole. You become someone who gives generously, but never from fear. Someone who loves deeply, but never tolerates disrespect. Someone who forgives, but never forgets where the line is. Someone who knows how to walk away, and because of that, is never taken for granted again. So now, let me ask you directly, in which part of your life do you feel it's time to assert yourself? Is it in your career, your family, your intimate relationships? Tell me in the comments. Your answer might be the mirror someone else needs to finally see themselves. Because change doesn't start when everything is perfect. Change starts when we admit where we've been weak and choose to step into our strength. And if this message hit home, if any part of this video felt like it called you out or woke something up inside you, don't stop here. The next video is just as important. Don't skip it. Don't delay it. Because understanding the psychology of respect is only the beginning. Now comes the real journey, living it.